Hey guys, welcome back to the Watch Center podcast. This is episode 2. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Venezia.
I'm David.
And today we're going to be talking about a few things. We know that the watch market is dipping a little bit, but there's actually a few watches that are kind of fighting against that. We're also going to be talking about the Bubba Watson interview that Hypebeast covered. And we're going to be talking about the watch that Richard Mille put out.
The first thing I want to cover is actually some of the watches that are being pretty resilient. One of the watches is actually an Oyster Perpetual. What's interesting is that it's not even a sports watch. You know, it's not like your typical GMT sub. It's not a vintage Daytona. You know, it's not a Paul Newman. It's a Tiffany dial Oyster Perpetual. And per some of our sources like Hypebeast, they were covering a auction at Christie's. And essentially there was a Tiffany dial Oyster Perpetual 41 millimeter watch. It was labeled as like new, and it nearly sold for $70,000. Keep in mind that this watch retails at $5,900. That's nearly, what is that? That's over 1,000% above retail.
Good math.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that like a few watches are kind of, like I said, like fighting against it, because it seems like a lot of the most liked watches are kind of dipping a little bit, and this would probably be the best time to buy as a watch enthusiast. But yeah, it's insane that the Tiffany blue dial Rolex sold for so much at the Christie's event in Geneva, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. I think there is a few factors that we need to take into consideration, especially with a watch like this. It really all kind of started with the Tiffany dial Patek that sold. I think it sold for several. What was it? What was the actual price? 5 million.
Oh, I was completely off.
5.3 million, 5.4 million. Okay.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That was at an auction?
Yeah, so the Tiffany dial Patek sold for $5.3 million at an auction. And don't forget that also includes all the other prices when you purchase a watch from a auction. I think usually there's a 20% increase on top of that. So, I mean, whoever bought it, congrats to you. Big baller moves for sure,
That's actually the watch that Carrie Gamble wore at the Met Gala, to like kind of refer back to our episode 1. Speaking of baller.
Wow. Okay, wow. I mean,
if you watched episode 1, you would understand where exactly I'm coming from. But
wow.
It's insane to like, I can't truly fathom like a $5 million watch on your wrist, and how that watch itself, it like kind of swayed the price for this Rolex watch by like 1,000% or more than 1,000%. That's insane.
Yeah. And I think that really was the turning point. Since that auction, nearly every type of Tiffany blue dial watch that's been, kind of associated with that color, it's just jumped in price. Everyone kind of wants it. It's so hot. It's trending right now. And I don't know if that is going to keep going up or flatten out. It'll be very interesting to see, in the following months or so, to see what the price trends are, especially for those blue dials.
Mm-hmm.
Rolex has worked with Tiffany on several different occasions. So every once in a while, you'll find a vintage Submariner that says Rolex at the top, and it'll say Tiffany & Co. Under that, it'll say Submariner, and then you have all the death ratings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I personally haven't been keeping an eye on the vintage market as of late, but I wouldn't be surprised if those start, going up in price because of its association with Tiffany & Co.
Well, so that kind of makes me think about like what we were talking about earlier is the Paul Newman, because that in itself is a vintage watch. So I wonder how that, like other vintage watches are doing regardless of the Tiffany blue dial. Tiffany blue obviously like is its own thing in the watch industry. But I'm curious about other vintage watches and how they're fighting against the market, the watch market. Yeah. Do you know of any other watches that are kind of kind of reflect the fight against the watch market?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree, vintage watches are a bit more resilient, mainly because one, the production of those watches have already stopped. There's already a lot of history behind those watches. It may have gone up in recent days in regards to all the price hikes, especially within all the watches. But I don't think it went up as high as the newer models, nor do I think it dropped as hard as the newer models as well. I think they are a bit more steady in terms of the value because when collectors are looking at these watches, they're looking for very specific things, especially within the vintage market. They're looking for specific references. They're looking for specific features like maybe a gilt dial, maybe a spider dial. Maybe they want to check and make sure that the patina on all the hands and the hour markers are matching, which really elevates that piece to a whole different league.
That's so cool.
It's nuts. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not a vintage expert. I've seen a couple of vintage watches. I've seen several Paul Newmans, and very collectible models.
I really really like Paul Newman's. Like I really like the look of it, the mid-century modern look to it. Was it the mid-century modern look?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really call it mid-century modern. I've typically just called it like Art Deco.
Okay, Art Deco. That's probably the yeah, I think I was completely mistaking it, but
Don't quote me.
I know I think you're right, so quote him. I think it's such a pretty watch. I know John Mayer has one of the like vintage Paul Newmans. Don't
Yeah.
quote me. I'm pretty sure. But it's like I really like the vintage look. It kind of reminds me of that artist that I who lives in I think like Greenland or like Iceland or something, and he gets these dials, these Rolex dials, and he kind of like conserves them in this environment that makes this like perfect natural rust patina look on them, and it naturally occurs because of the environment. But I just really like that like worn vintage look, and I never even considered the different colors of the hands and like the patina of that. Like,
Yeah.
that's insane. Like the more and more I learn about watches, the more I appreciate it because I have an art history background. So like this in itself, I'm learning more and more that like it's truly an art piece and it's truly an art. It's artwork in itself, and it's the more I learn, the more I'm just like, okay, yeah, I completely get it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'd love to learn so much more about vintages. I personally don't have that much experience within that realm, but it's always been so fascinating to me. Rolex has been known to have very specific models or very specific variations or iterations, all within even the same reference. I think the biggest one would be vintage Submariners, I'd say. You have, you know, basically even different materials on the dial. Sometimes you have different hands, like you have the Mille sub, I think that's 5517, and it has sword hands compared to what today's modern Submariner is, just a long stick and a point at the end. So things have definitely evolved. There's so many one-off instances. Even the Kermit, which is a 116613, there's something called a flat four, and the only difference between a flat four and a normal Kermit is actually on the bezel, on the four, where it has a flat four at the top. Like the font is different for that one specific four, and it sells for significantly higher than what a normal Kermit would be. So
That's crazy.
yeah, I mean, the vintage world is definitely like you kind of have to have an eye for, and a lot of times you'll miss it if you don't know what you're looking for. I've definitely missed so many things, but yeah, I'm circling back to the whole Tiffany blue dial. It's really going to be interesting to see how these new watches that were produced, I think only for a year, to see how it's going to look like, 10 years from now, maybe even 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I myself, I'm definitely curious. I think the world is curious as well, but that's something only time will tell.
Yeah. So Richard Mille released their fourth watch with Bubba. We should add a picture of Baba.
Baba, the
Okay.
dog, the first dog to be sponsored by Richard Mille.
This episode is sponsored by Baba. So yeah, Richard Mille released their fourth watch with Bubba Watson. So genuinely, I've never really like seen a watch and been like, I need this watch ASAP. But this Bubba Watson watch, the RM038, RM038. It's pink and it's, in my opinion, stunning. I love it. If I had like $1 million, I would immediately buy it. Like, no joke. So yeah, they're hand painted to represent his golf clubs. He uses a pink golf club. That's like his thing.
Cool.
I flippin' love this watch. I genuinely like the
Wow.
first time I saw it, I was like, I need to talk about this because this is actually a watch that I genuinely want. If anyone has $1 million to give, I will take it. If Richard Mille wants to give out one of their 50 limited pieces, I will take it. No joke. I'll wear it every single day. But yeah, so Richard Mille did an interview with Bubba Watson, and he kind of talks about the new watch. So yeah, essentially the watch was created to withstand the G-force of his golf swing, which is insane in itself. Like, I didn't imagine that being a component of like making a watch. But yeah, so it has it's a 3 tourbillon caliber.
Wow.
So it's, again, I'm a watch noob, as I said. I don't really know much about like the details and like I don't know how nitty gritty a watch can be and like what makes it good. But from just the aesthetics, from just looking at it, that's where I'm like fangirling, just because I really like Michelle Yeoh is like a Richard Mille ambassador. And since I saw her wear it at the Met Gala, and genuinely not that, but I'm saying like that made me be like, okay, yeah, Richard Mille could actually look cool on me. Like I could sport a Richard Mille and be like, yo, like look at this pink watch.
Yo.
Yeah, so it has 5 bridges, which are hand painted. It's from what I know and from what I could see, it's a really well made watch.
Yeah. You know, I do kind of see like this reoccurring theme with Richard Mille, especially with their ambassadors being in sports. You know, you have Bubba Watson, obviously he plays golf. We also have Rafael Nadal. Honestly, I believe he's also sponsored by Richard Mille. And I think several years ago, they gave him a watch and he actually played in either, you know, I think it was Wimbledon or maybe it was a different type of tournament.
Yeah.
But essentially he wore a RM while competing.
Yeah.
And
well, there's another NFL player who wore an RM while at a game, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know which NFL player, but that's insane to just wear like this insanely expensive watch while you're like getting tackled. Yeah,
I mean, imagine like these 300-pound monsters just coming for you and you're like, oh my god, my Richard Mille, oh my god.
I would hope that wasn't like at the front of his brain just thinking like
oh no, who knows. I mean, these athletes, they just have like laser sharp focus, you know? So maybe they did think about it, maybe they didn't, but I think that really comes to show what Richard Mille is up to, what their philosophy is. You know, I think their idea is if it could withstand a swing by Bubba Watson, tennis games, you know, and being tackled by NFL players, it'll probably survive most day-to-day things.
Yeah,
you know?
It's probably one of the best ways to market how durable your watch is. Like, not only are they super cool looking, but this withstands 10,000 G-force, or you could get tackled in it and it's gonna be okay. Or you could play tennis and
that's nuts. Like, it's honestly, I don't think I could even produce like 1 G from like swinging a baseball bat, you know, or, you know, swinging a golf club.
That's so funny.
But damn, like,
yeah, athletes, am I right?
Yeah, no, that's amazing, you know.
So Yeah, the interview that Bubba Watson does with, I'm going to say it in a very Americanized way, Richard Mille.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting little interview. He does kind of like an end skit, which I watched it, but they have this like beautiful B-roll shot of the RM38, and it's again fangirling because it's such a pretty watch. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely pretty, you know, pretty good looking. I'm not gonna lie. And, you know, like the watch itself, me personally, I probably wouldn't wear it just because it's not my cup of tea. I don't know that much about Richard Mille. I know a little more about Rolex.
They're new in the game, right? Technically, like they're one of the newer brands.
They're a little newer, but I can't say for certain. But they're making such a big splash. You know, they're covering so much ground. They're able to get these key ambassadors. You see RMs within the elite of the elite. You see them on celebrities and influencers. It's so hard to say where they'll be in the future. I think they'll be great. Even Drake has one. He has RM69, which is like a very explicit watch, so to speak. I mean, maybe we'll put up some examples like here or there. And it's obviously captivating for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Me, I don't see it quite yet. Maybe I need to just do my research a bit more.
I am all about it. Literally just based off the aesthetics. Because again, you could probably like you'll probably see a watch and like take into account the watchmaking aspect, or like what truly makes this watch a great watch, whether it has a perpetual calendar or whatever makes a watch amazing. But just the aesthetics, I'm all in with Richard Mille.
All right.
Hot take.
All right. That's your hot take of the day. Richard Mille is the brand to go.
For me. Again, I'm just going to put this in. If you have $1 million, just out there.
Laying around.
And you could buy me a Richard Mille. I'm not going to say no. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Great way to invest your money.
For sure. It's an investment for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's essentially the Richard Mille. It's the fourth watch that Bubba Watson put out. And quite frankly, like I said, it's my favorite. Yeah.
Do you think it's chef's kiss? Like,
oh, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's much more that I could like reiterate how much I truly love this. I don't want to like specify again that if someone wants to give me the watch, I'll like gladly have it. But yeah. So it's a great watch.
It's great. It looks amazing.
So yeah, that concludes episode 2. If you guys have any more suggestions that or like topics that you want us to talk about, feel free to let us know. Yeah.
All right. And if you guys haven't checked out our first episode, definitely go to our YouTube channel and see what we posted. It's full of fun stuff. We talked about the Met Gala. We talk about the watch market again, and it's awesome. So I think that really concludes what we have to say. However, we do have a special announcement. We're opening up our retail shop and we are having a launch party. So definitely tune into some of our social media, our Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube. We'll be hosting a live stream where you'll see some familiar faces because a lot of them will be public figures, content creators, and maybe some of them you've even heard their music on the radio or on Spotify. So be sure to check us out, check in, and we'll see you there.
Yeah, and be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Watch Standard. We're going to be live streaming it on YouTube and TikTok, so you definitely don't want to miss out. We're going to put out the date very, very soon. So yeah, see you there.
See you there, guys.
Bye.
Links are all below.
Yeah.